Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are diving deep into how children become bilingual.
Ooh.
We're focusing specifically on the challenges and the opportunities for kids from immigrant backgrounds here in the U.S.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is. And we've got some really interesting research to unpack, including insights from an interview with Adriana Weisslitterwa의.
Oh, yeah, I know her.
Yeah, she's a developmental psychologist and language scientist at Northwestern University.
She's doing some great work.
She is. So get ready to have some common myths busted about bilingualism, because I think what we're about to learn might surprise you.
I think you're right. It's a topic that's really ripe with misconceptions.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump right in. One of the most intriguing things I came across is this idea that bilingual children, while they're developing two languages, they actually hit the same developmental milestones as their monolingual peers.
It's true.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you see, it might seem like bilingual children are lagging behind because they may have a smaller vocabulary in one language compared to a monolingual child.
Okay.
But the fascinating thing is when you consider their total vocabulary across both languages, they're right on par.
Oh, wow.
It's like their brains are building two separate systems simultaneously.
That's amazing.
Which is pretty incredible when you think about it.
It really challenges that assumption that bilingual kids are somehow slower, right?
Right.
It makes us think differently about language development.
Exactly. And, you know, this applies even when one of the languages is a signed language.
Really?
So it really underscores that this phenomenon is about language acquisition in general, not just about spoken words.
Wow. Okay. So that busts the myth about bilingual kids developing slower.
Right.
But there's another big concern out there, especially among immigrant parents, that exposing their children to two languages might actually confuse them or hinder their English learning. What does the research say about that?
Well, it's understandable why parents would have these worries.
Yeah.
Especially those navigating a new culture and language themselves.
For sure.
And these anxieties are often compounded by the fact that U.S. schools predominantly assess children in English.
Right.
So parents might worry that their child's progress in their heritage language might come at the expense of their English proficiency and their academic success.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is there any truth to those concerns?
Oh.
Does bilingualism make learning English harder?
The research actually paints a much more encouraging picture.
Okay.
While some studies have shown that bilingual children may initially have a slightly smaller vocabulary in one of their languages, they quickly catch up to their monolingual peers.
Oh, okay.
More importantly, bilingualism doesn't hinder their ability to learn English or any other language for that matter.
That's good.
In fact, there's emerging research suggesting that it may even offer some cognitive advantages.
Well, that's fascinating. So it sounds like the fears surrounding bilingualism are largely unfounded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here's another compelling point. Weisslitter's work also highlights that even children with developmental disabilities can and do learn two languages.
Wow.
So it's not a matter of bilingualism making things harder for them.
Right.
Their brains are just as capable of handling two languages as anyone else's.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the brain's just plasticity and adaptability.
Really does.
So we've debunked two major myths already.
We have.
Bilingual kids develop at the same pace, and it doesn't hinder their English learning. But I'm curious now, what role does the environment play in fostering bilingualism?
Yeah.
It can't all be about brain power, right?
You're absolutely right. While children have an innate capacity for language learning, the environment they're in plays a crucial role in how well they develop both languages.
Okay.
Sadly, in the U.S., languages other than English, especially those spoken by immigrant communities, are often perceived as having lower status.
Yeah.
This creates a real disadvantage for bilingual children.
It's almost like we're subtly, or not so subtly, sending the message that their home language isn't as valuable.
Yes, and that can have a detrimental impact on their language development and even their sense of identity.
Wow.
Now, contrast that with a place like Quebec, Canada, where bilingualism, specifically French and English, is fully supported and embraced.
Right.
There you see high levels of proficiency in both languages, demonstrating the power of a supportive environment.
It really begs the question, what could be possible here in the U.S. if we shifted our perspective and started truly valuing and supporting bilingualism?
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah, and it becomes even more urgent when you consider the findings from the Pew Research Center showing that a significant number of U.S.-born Latinos are losing fluency in Spanish.
It's true.
It's a loss not just on an individual level, but for our culture and society as a whole.
Absolutely.
It feels like we're missing out on so much potential by not embracing and fostering bilingualism. but I'm eager to hear about potential solutions. What can we do to better support bilingual children and families?
Well, Weisslitter is a strong advocate for recognizing the right of all children to access their own languages and for celebrating the inherent benefits of linguistic diversity.
I love that. It's about shifting our mindset from viewing bilingualism as a problem to recognizing it as a strength, an asset.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she offers some concrete solutions.
Okay.
For instance, she highlights the incredible work being done by community programs like San Chiquitos in Chicago. They provide immersive environments where children can connect with their heritage, language, and culture through music, dance, and play.
That's great.
It's a wonderful example of how community-based initiatives can make a real difference.
That sounds fantastic. What other solutions does she propose?
Well, she emphasizes the need for more accessible dual-language schools.
Okay.
We need more programs that truly serve immigrant communities, not just affluent families seeking language enrichment for their children.
Right. Access and equity are paramount.
Absolutely.
We need to ensure that all children, regardless of their background, have the opportunity to develop their bilingual potential. What else can we do, particularly within the education system?
Well, Weisslitter advocates for moving away from English-only testing standards in schools.
Okay.
Instead, we should be valuing and assessing students' multilingual skills.
That makes sense.
Imagine if we could create a system that truly celebrates and supports bilingual learners, acknowledging the unique cognitive and cultural assets they bring to the table.
That's a powerful vision. It would require a fundamental shift in our educational approach, but the potential benefits are undeniable.
I agree.
It's about creating a more inclusive and equitable learning environment where all children can thrive.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to bring this back to a personal level for a moment.
Okay.
Because Weisslitter also shares her own experience raising her 1.5-year-old daughter bilingually speaking both Spanish and English at home.
Yeah.
It's a great reminder that even language experts navigate these very same complexities and challenges in their own lives. It's not always easy, even when you have a deep understanding of language acquisition.
It's not.
And she's open about facing those challenges, particularly with English being the dominant language in her household.
I see.
It makes it harder to create that immersive Spanish environment she desires for her daughter.
Makes sense.
It's a common struggle for many families, especially when one language is more prevalent in their daily lives.
Yeah.
So what are some of the strategies she's employing to create a balanced bilingual environment for her daughter?
Well, one key tip she emphasizes is the importance of focusing on meaningful conversations in Spanish.
Okay.
Avoiding using Spanish only for discipline or commands is crucial.
Gotcha.
It's about creating positive associations with the language.
I see. So it's about making Spanish a part of everyday life, not just something used for correction or instruction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about making it a natural part of their interactions, weaving it into everyday moments in a way that feels authentic and engaging. She also emphasizes the power of bilingual books and media.
It makes sense that those resources would be invaluable.
Definitely.
They offer a fun and engaging way to expose children to the language in a more immersive way.
Precisely. And they can also be a great way for parents to brush up on their own language skills or even learn alongside their children.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
It can be a family affair.
Yeah.
Learning a language together.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It sounds like creating a rich and engaging language environment is key.
Yeah, it's not just about speaking the language, right? It's about embedding it in everyday life and experiences.
Absolutely. And Weisslitter's own journey highlights how even with expertise, raising a bilingual child in a predominantly monolingual society comes with its own set of challenges.
You know, as we've been talking about all of this, I keep thinking back to those big questions that we posed at the beginning of our deep dive. Do bilingual kids actually learn slower? Can speaking two languages actually boost your brain power? And why is the U.S. so far behind places like Canada in embracing and supporting multilingualism?
Right. It's a good point to pause and reflect on how this deep dive has reshaped our understanding of bilingualism.
So to recap, based on what we've learned from Weisslitter's research and her personal experiences, it's pretty clear that bilingual kids don't actually learn slower.
No, they don't.
They're simply developing two intricate language systems simultaneously, a truly remarkable feat.
Yeah. And while the research on the cognitive benefits of bilingualism is ongoing, there's mounting evidence to suggest that speaking two languages can enhance certain cognitive abilities.
Like what?
For example, studies have shown that bilingual individuals often display greater flexibility in their thinking, better multitasking skills, and an increased ability to focus and filter out distractions.
Wow. So it's like giving your brain a workout,
Right.
constantly challenging it to adapt and switch between different modes of thinking.
Well, exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It is. And this cognitive flexibility can have far-reaching benefits, potentially impacting everything from academic performance to career success and even overall well-being.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, that brings us to the question of why the U.S. seems to lag behind other countries like Canada in embracing and fostering multilingualism. What factors contribute to this discrepancy?
Well, it's a complex issue with historical, social, and political dimensions. Unlike Canada, which has 2 official languages, the U.S. has never formally adopted a national language, although English has undeniably become the dominant language.
Right.
This historical context, coupled with waves of immigration throughout U.S. history, has created a complex linguistic landscape.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this has often led to pressure on immigrants to assimilate and abandon their heritage languages rather than valuing and preserving linguistic diversity.
So it seems like there's a historical and cultural bias towards monolingualism in the U.S., a perception that speaking only English is somehow better or more patriotic.
You've hit the nail on the head. This perception is often reinforced by policies and practices that prioritize English, sometimes even at the expense of other languages. We see this in the emphasis on English-only standardized testing in schools, for example.
It's almost as if we've developed a collective blind spot to the benefits and beauty of multilingualism. And as we've learned, the consequences of this go beyond just language loss. It can also impact individual sense of identity, cultural connection, and even cognitive potential.
Precisely. And it's worth noting that there are movements and organizations actively working to change this narrative.
Okay.
There's a growing recognition of the social, cultural, and economic benefits of a more multilingual society.
That's encouraging. It sounds like there's a real opportunity to shift the conversation around bilingualism in the U.S. What are some of the most promising avenues for change?
Well, researchers like Weissliter are playing a crucial role in providing the evidence-based foundation for these changes.
Okay.
Their work helps dispel myths, highlights the benefits of bilingualism, and informs more effective policies and practices.
Right.
And as we discussed, community-based initiatives like the Son Chiquitos program are demonstrating the power of creating culturally and linguistically rich environments for children.
Yeah.
These programs not only support language development, but also foster a sense of belonging and pride in one's heritage.
So it sounds like it's a multi-pronged approach. We need research to inform policy community initiatives, to provide support and a broader cultural shift in how we value and perceive multilingualism. What would you say to someone listening who might be thinking, okay, this is all great, but what can I as an individual do to support this change?
That's a fantastic question. I think the most important thing is to start by examining our own beliefs and attitudes towards languages other than English.
Okay.
Do we see them as a threat or as an asset? Do we appreciate the richness and diversity they bring to our communities?
It's about challenging those ingrained biases and recognizing that multilingualism is something to be celebrated, not feared. What are some other concrete actions listeners can take?
If you have children, consider exposing them to multiple languages, even if you're not fluent yourself. Read bilingual books together. Watch foreign language films or explore cultural events in your community. If you don't have children, you can still advocate for language diversity in your workplace, school, or community. Support legislation that promotes bilingual education, volunteer with organizations that serve immigrant communities, or simply make an effort to learn a new language yourself. Every small step contributes to creating a more inclusive and multilingual society.
I love those suggestions. It really highlights how we can all play a part, no matter how small, in creating a more welcoming and appreciative environment for bilingualism.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that this is an ongoing journey, a conversation that needs to continue.
You're right. We've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating and multifaceted topic. There's so much more to explore and learn.
There is so much more. And you know what's exciting is that we're really seeing this groundswell of support for bilingualism, not just from academics and researchers, but from communities and individuals across the country.
That's awesome. It's inspiring to see that shift happening.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into bilingualism, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question, one that builds on everything we've discussed today.
I'm all ears.
Okay. Imagine a future where the U.S. fully embraces multilingualism, where speaking more than one language is not just accepted, but truly valued. What kind of ripple effects might we see across our communities and society as a whole?
Wow. That's a powerful question to ponder. I think we'd see a profound transformation in so many areas. For starters, we'd likely see a more inclusive and equitable society, one where individuals from diverse linguistic backgrounds feel truly seen, heard, and respected. Imagine classrooms where children's home languages are celebrated and integrated into the learning process,
Yeah.
fostering a sense of belonging and pride.
And beyond the classroom, think about the economic benefits. In a globalized world, multilingualism is a huge asset. It opens up new markets, fosters cross-cultural understanding, and enhances communication and collaboration.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
We'd also likely see a richer and more vibrant cultural landscape. Imagine a country where multiple languages are woven into the fabric of everyday life, where we can seamlessly switch between languages, share stories and traditions from different cultures, and appreciate the beauty of linguistic diversity.
It paints such a compelling picture of a more connected, empathetic, and dynamic society.
And I think that's the key takeaway here. Embracing multilingualism isn't just about language.
Right.
It's about creating a more just equitable and vibrant world for everyone.
It's about recognizing the inherent value and dignity of every language and culture.
Exactly. And it's about acknowledging the incredible cognitive and social benefits that come with speaking more than one language.
Well said. And as we close out this conversation, I want to invite our listeners to continue this dialogue.
Yeah,
Share your own thoughts, experiences, and ideas about bilingualism.
please do.
What steps can we take as individuals and as a society to create a more multilingual future?
Let's keep the conversation going. Let's challenge those outdated notions about language and embrace the power of multilingualism to build a brighter future for all.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of bilingualism.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a topic that matters. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those conversations going.